lover, never jealous of another. Ain't gotta hide to try to keep it undercover. She could tongue her while I'm putting on the rubber. Let me test drive legs wider than a Hummer. This is the notorious Blood on My Timbs situation that I rapped about with T-Rex, and T-Rex having a mixtape called Blood on My Timbs, and me actually having a situation where I had blood on my Timbs or whatever, like that whole third round battle rap shit or whatever. So I took that situation and I rapped that on one of Kanye's beats, and then I had another situation with a snitch, and I rapped that on Kanye's beats. Thank God, if you find them records, bury them. Bury them. I don't need to get indicted, or I'm telling y'all a story, but there was so much detail and this is crazy, right? There was dope records. So my manager played them for Kanye. No, he didn't. He actually got me on the phone with Kanye, and he was like, "Yo, rap over some of my joints, and let me see what's up." So I rapped over the Guess Who's Back joint, right? And then I rapped over the joint where I'm talking about what happened with my cousin, and then another one was like a snitch song, right? Basically going at a snitch from my hood, right? Well, from Brooklyn, right? And he heard it and he was like, "Yo, dog, you fire. I'm gonna set up a meeting with hip hop, this, that, and third, da 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 da." So he set up a meeting at Rockefeller for me. And at the time, I let somebody kind of like control me. And maybe this is gonna reflect in this whole Kanye interview, when people have like a certain control over you. I had just got a job, and then I just got a job at a banking firm. Yes, all this gangster shit I'm talking about, working at a fucking banking firm. But of course, I was in the office services department, right? This was me trying to like get away from shit. Just had a son, let me take care of stuff or whatever. So I got this job that wasn't manual labor. I wasn't working next to idiots or whatever, right? I came on live to confess, whatever. So I'm working this job, and I asked my employer at the time. Now this is my dream. This is something I've been doing forever. You know what I mean? I shows, all that, and unfortunately, like everybody in the office knew that about me, even to the point where when before JAYZ acquired the Nets, he came up to the firm that I was at to talk to one of the partners, I guess, to get advice on it. And everybody in the firm was like, yo, how we gonna get Just to go to talk to JAYZ? How we gonna figure out, what floor is JAYZ on, and da-da-da-da-da. And they, people like, "Oh, you come with me and we gonna walk by and see if we could get a conversation." I'm walking by, I'm seeing Jay in the office talking to one of it was crazy, right? So, and shout out to all the people that had that type of love for me. But for this particular situation, where I had the cosign of Kanye for a meeting with hip hop, and at the time that they wanted to meet, I asked for the day off. Real talk. This is real talk. And my boss is like, "You need to give up on that shit. You got a job now." And he said, if you take this day off, I can't guarantee that you're going to have a job afterwards. And out of all the crazy shit that I did in my life, for some reason, that made me nervous. And this is when Kanye talks about the control, and I've regretted that ever since then. Because looking back, I think he wasn't gonna fire me, and if he was gonna fire me, I know from when I did get fired the severance was going to put me over. I was still going to be able to cop whatever and put it back into, you know what I mean? All that crazy shit, right? So when you hear people talk about like that control, like, yeah, I wasn't ready at that time to take that type of risk for myself. And I understand, like, I had a kid and, I was worried about that. But the consistent in my life is I was always going to figure out a way. Eventually I did lose that job and I figured out a way. And eventually I figured out another way and another way and another way. And now I'm, sitting in front of y'all with like 1 million subscribers, right? So yeah, he was hating eventually, but he got. I'll tell y'all the story about him later. But working there, bro, I could write a whole fucking sitcom on working there. It was crazy, right? So for that, getting back to the point, for Kanye setting that up, off the strength of hearing those 3 joints, I always said, yo, if you saw me on the show when you saw my Kanye, Mech loves to like go in and call him name out his name and all that shit and da 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 da. And I get it, that's how Mech views things or whatever, right? But for me, I'd be like, yo, no Kanye slander, because he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to do that. You know what I mean? And even though in the meeting, I wasn't there, which is probably like wasn't a good look. It was not a good look for me not to be there. My manager took the meeting anyway. But he was like, yo, we just signed Cam and da 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 da. And I'm, but yo, the shit sound fire. But, if I was there, it would have been probably a different story because I knew how to like project and make people feel what I was saying, right? So I've always felt like a sucker from that moment. Like, damn, why did I let that nigga control me and kind of like shit on my dream? Because that's what he really did. He really kind of like shitted on my dream, and I co-signed him. I basically co-signed him. You know what I'm saying? So as I'm listening to this, I'm going to listen to it. Of course, I didn't get to listen to it yet. As I'm listening to it, I'm going to keep that in mind because a lot of Kanye's messages about control is funny that it takes me back to that moment. You get what I'm saying?